Good evening and welcome to season 8 of Live, Love, and Marry Wiser. I am ecstatic that we are here. We are back. We are refreshed. We are getting refreshed and we are excited to be back with you for season number 8 of this podcast that we love so much. You know that our mission is to help you live, love, and marry wiser. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. But with all you're getting, get understanding. And we are here back on season 8 to help you get understanding about the different aspects of life, love, and marriage. And I am joined, as usual, by my co host, Onita Hall. How are you, Onita?
Hey, Lo, welcome back. Season 8. I'm doing good.
So, um, as we get ready to um, get into our conversation for today, I hope that you all have watched the ones that we did on the break because we did record those live, and I think we have one replay. Um, we had some good content. We're still going through the book, but today we have a very interesting topic, which is every day, really, but raising children so they are a legacy, not a liability. Woo!
Woo,
Because they
woo.
can be. How many people know that they can be? They can. They
Yeah.
can. They can bring you down. But here's the thing that we're gonna learn about today. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put the quote on the thing, but I'm just gonna read it to you all. Um, we're in the book The Advent is Home. We're on chapter 23, 24, 25, 26. We're just doing this whole section on children are a heritage of the Lord. And we're going to talk about even what that means. You know, sometimes you grow up in church, you hear all these things, but you don't actually know what it means or define it.
Mhm.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about that too. But let's just start off. The thing is, when you're a good writer, it's like the opening of your sentence, opening of your chapter, opening of your essay should give people a sense of what's going to be coming. It shouldn't just be some random thought.
Yes.
She's a master at this. He who gave Eve to Adam as a helpmeet ordained that men and women should be united in holy wedlock. To rare families whose members, crowned with honor, should be recognized as members of the family above. Children are the heritage of the Lord, and we are answerable to Him for our management of His property.
Boom.
Boom. Okay. As always,
Boom.
you know I'm going to give you a chance to give me a summary of your thoughts just of this section and just this chapter.
Boom.
Pretty much it. Holler at us in the
Just
chat.
like you,
We want to hear from you.
like you said, the fact that she just opens up with it, no hesitation. Let's just give one she said you ought to be united in holy wedlock first.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was intentional that she's putting that because two people who have not even committed before God and committed to stay together should definitely
Mm-hmm.
not be having children.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there was no reading in between the lines. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Be committed to each other in holy wedlock. You need to be married. So your foundation, first of all, before you even think about that, but then so you can rear the children um, to be recognized as family above. Like you're not just having them to have them, but you're also ensuring that their heritage, your legacy is one that you're raising children that are going to make it into the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
That
Hey
that
Taylor.
that hey Tay Tay, that you're not just having them all willy nilly. I mean, I remember growing up, girls being like, "I want my kids to have this kind of hair," I want to have twins. It's all the superficial things we think about. But she's saying, take this thing serious. This is this is your heritage, and God gave them to you. But guess what? They're his
Mhm.
property, so don't play with it. This is very important, that the job that you do and having these children, and but also rearing them. The Bible tells us to raise them in the fear and admonition of the Lord, and this is something that I pray every night, because later in some other chapters, and I'm going to say why I can remember it now because I may forget later. She basically said, if you ain't raising them to be kingdom builders, then you're raising them to be a part of the army of the devil.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not gonna raise them right, then you're literally raising them to be a part of the devil's. And nobody's
Mhm.
thinking that when you figure, oh, we ain't got to go to church every week. It's all right. We're not studying the Bible regularly. I mean, it's okay. I'm letting you watch a little
You're
PG
actually
13, and then
freezing
next week
now
you're like,
as opposed to before. Just so you
oh, I
yeah,
am
now you
freezing.
are. You weren't
Okay,
before. So I don't know if that's a what that's
I know, but I don't look like I'm freezing on my end. I'll try. I'm gonna try another. I'll go
okay.
back to the other one. I even told everybody in my house to shut off the Wi-Fi.
Taylor, get those people in order. You
Get them off the
know,
Wi-Fi, Tay. But the reality is that when we neglect to raise them the way God intended, and recognize, and when we neglect to recognize that they are His
mm-hmm.
property, that they are a gift to us, that this is a gift, but this is God's property, and so to not take it lightly, to not be frivolous with it, and to not just make it another to-do list on your check, your list of accomplishments. Oh, I got the job, the career, I
Yes.
got the
Oh, that's
husband,
good.
I got the job. Now I must
That's
have the
good.
kids, just to fill in
That's
the
good.
blank.
That's good. That's good. Okay, I love what you said, but I was taking notes. I'm not ignoring. I was taking notes because I'm just like
Mhm.
super tired, and I'm like I don't want to forget to comment on something that you said. That's really important because I'm in a. I will be honest. Like I kind of skimmed over the whole united in holy wedlock part because we talked about that and it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh yeah, that's obvious. But when you brought it up, I was saying, yeah, that's good that she said that, and it's good that you highlighted it because we have become comfortable in the church.
Hello.
And if you just listen all the way through before you get mad at what I'm about to say, listen all the way through, and then if you still want to be mad, okay, I mean whatever. But we have become comfortable with the idea of having babies and not being married,
Hmm.
and what I'm not saying is if someone gets pregnant when they're not married that we should shun them, we should talk about them, we should whatever. But the fact is we don't talk enough about the fact that this is not God's plan. Forget the sex
Yeah.
part. We already That's not God's plan from the beginning. pregnancy is just
Hmm.
Pregnancy is outside of marriage is not a sin. Sex outside of marriage is a sin, which can result in a pregnancy that is unplanned, and for many unwanted. So let's not even we say all these cute things, but for many of those people this baby is unwanted, at least by
Hmm.
one of the
Hmm.
parties, if not both. And then you're forced to either grow up and become an actual parent, or you make the terrible choice to abort, or you make the different choice to give the baby up for adoption. None of these are
Yeah.
God's plan. Let's just put that out there. None of these are God's
Yeah.
plan. Now, obviously, if you adoption is a good option, adoption is a good option,
Yeah.
But and he
Bars.
even talked, yeah, he even that she even talks about that later. But
Yes.
that's different circumstances. So we need to stop celebrating couples having babies out of wedlock. We don't need to stop supporting. We don't need to stop encouraging. We don't need to stop helping. We don't need to stop praying. We don't need to, but we need to stop celebrating as if this is the normal. Even though it might be normal, it's not what God
Right.
wants. And you start
Yeah.
off in the deficit in this plan of how children should be raised. You start off in the deficit. And here's the thing, Onita, again, not trying to offend anybody, but when we don't have a commitment to each other, and you said this, but I want to highlight that you said this.
Hmm.
When you don't have a commitment to each other, you're not even committed enough to be married. How can you then be on the same page to train a child a citizen for heaven? Because that's ultimately what the foundation of these chapters are is about. You are given, God is lending you his child. He
Hmm.
didn't give it to
Hmm.
you. He lent you his
Yeah.
child to raise this child for heaven, just like God
Yeah.
lent Mary and Joseph Jesus to train for his work that he was going to do because he came as a baby. So she had to teach him. He was the word, but he was being taught the word. If
Yes.
she had,
Yes.
obviously, he would not have picked someone who was derelict in their duties, though they did have that little, situation in when he was 12. But I'm like, that little situation there. But if we don't have the depth to be married and committed to each other, how in the world are we going to be committed to raising this child to become a citizen of heaven?
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point again, if we're not committed, but also meaning, I mean, you may the person you may not even like them like that. Okay. And being married in a committed relationship, getting pregnant, and all the things that a woman's body goes through, the emotional roller coasters, and all the things, the unavailability. If you were only, because she talks about to a house later, a couple without children, the tendencies that you're prone to be more selfish, more
Mm-hmm.
self-absorbed. Even the wife may be catering so much to the husband that, and I've seen this happen a lot, that when the woman does become pregnant, in the things start to slow down. The temperament of the man begins to get a little
Mm,
irritated or annoyed. But then you put the baby into the once the baby comes, and the mother has to dote and do everything for that child, especially if you're nursing. You can't help but so much. And this person who's been used to you giving them all
yes.
your attention, there's been a plenty of relationships. So you already in a married relationship can have contention and
Mm-hmm.
issues. Think about one when you and the person weren't even you never committed to even
Right.
being together,
Right.
staying together, but also the foundational tension, the drama, the confusion, the anger, the
Yeah.
resentment, the bitterness. Having this child, unplanned child, what it brings into the relationship. I mean, I grew up, my mom was a young mother having me. Not only did she not plan it, but the father denied it. Like she'd only been with him. And so now the pregnancy, and she talks about it in child guidance a lot, but later in one of these chapters too, the mother's
Mm-hmm.
mental health and the father,
Yes.
but what that does during the pregnancy, the mother's temperament, what she's going through, what goes into the
Mm-hmm.
child, how she's carrying this child, what she's feeling like, all the things, and how critical of a role it is. So then you add on top of that, her not having a partner there with her, supporting her through it, no support of family either, and what that experience
Mm-hmm.
now is like for this mother when again we're not starting out as the way God
Yeah.
intended, being in holy wedlock, remembering that these children are a gift. God entrusts them to us, and that is a sacred responsibility. But I like that she also pinpointed that it was also an opportunity for us as the parents for our
Yeah.
spiritual growth
Yeah.
and joy, and for us to learn how to be
Mm-hmm.
self-sacrificing. And she says, what, and for us to learn what true
Yeah.
love really is, because that was deep to me. Because I said, when before my husband and I got married, that was true love. But no, there's a different love that
Mm.
comes when you have this child. Like the baby comes out, and other moms, if you're watching, you can probably attest to this too. that you end up going, I love, like this baby comes and you think, man, how could I love somebody I
Mm.
just met? Like
Mm.
love you this much. And I loved you like I've loved you my whole life.
Wow.
And you're like, and I could feel that way because also I too was being loved. We planned it, and it was also a miracle and a blessing. So I wasn't coming into this like begrudgingly.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God, I don't want
Yes.
this.
Yes. Yes.
So I mean, it was an answered prayer, and so we were happy about it. So I could also see the joy of it. But then I can see what Auntie Ellen is talking about, this true love and learning the self-sacrificing that God wants for us as all believers to learn and have this be a part of our
Mm-hmm.
character. But I never saw it like that until reading in these chapters in this
Mm-hmm.
section 7,
No, that's good.
that was a part of his plan and what he
Yeah.
intended for us when we're
That's
doing
so
that.
good. That's so good. I love that. And I love what you said there because I was going to kind of talk about that. That when you are married in holy wedlock, and there's a distinction between being married and being in holy wedlock. I think we've
Mhm.
made that for the last 6 sections. So, like, but there are two things. If you marry because you got pregnant, did you really want to be married to that person? And even
Mm,
if you plan to be married to that person, now you don't have any time to be married to that person because you go in having to be a parent, which you understand that in a different way. And even I was talking to
yeah,
Victor when you all were down here, and we were talking about that too, that you all were young and now you're parents before your parents because you're taking care of
yeah,
your siblings.
yes,
And so, and he was just saying how hard that was, but you did the responsible thing. But now you have a baby that you didn't plan for, and part of you don't want for real. You want in a sense because it's your child. Some people don't want that baby at all. We know that they do different
yeah,
things, but you're trying to learn how to be married to someone you're not even sure you want to be married to. Would you have gotten married if you didn't get pregnant? Because now the church does that. It like forces people, and that, now let's just put
yes,
problem upon top of another problem. Like, so we got that. But then the other thing is when you marry someone that you want to marry in holy wedlock, you all on one accord, then you make a
yeah,
decision. We're going to wait until we marry 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or whatever long. And maybe, and now we're trying and now it's not working, but then God does something for some people, or, the miracle, or maybe you don't need a miracle. I mean, though
yes,
life is a miracle in itself. So like we
yes,
don't want to discount
yes,
that, but you make a decision that now we're ready to start trying to have a baby. When
yes,
you do it the other way, you don't make a decision except to have sex. And then this happens. Now, right, here's the
yeah, you
thing that
go
people
into it.
don't think about. Even when you have sex outside of marriage and you get pregnant, that's still a miracle. That's still God doing that.
Yes,
Not blocking
yeah,
it. He's like, nope, this is what we're going to do. That child is still a blessing. And this is the point of this chapter. Children are a blessing.
yes, they are.
And
They
so,
are
whatever
gift.
your circumstance of how your child got here, God's like, I still gave him or her to you. And this is what I need you to be doing. And if your stuff ain't in order,
Yes.
if your healing hasn't come and you try to parent, you will not parent healthily. And there will be
Hmm.
scars on your children. And prayerfully, not scars from the sense of them missing out on heaven or choosing, because that as an adult, you still have to choose whether you're going to follow God or not.
Hmm.
But the groundwork is laid at in the womb. The ground,
Okay.
and even going further, let's talk about this. I want to say, let me give a couple of definitions that we'll talk about that we will keep mentioning heritage, where the scripture says children are the heritage of the Lord. heritage is a special or individual possession, an allotted portion. It's an inheritance. It's something that God has passed on to us. When we say a liability, a person or thing whose presence or behavior is likely to cause embarrassment or put one at a disadvantage. You don't want children who are liabilities for sure, but you creating that. A legacy refers to something handed down from the past, often a positive influence or inheritance. And so let's talk about um, the idea that you started to talk about families that or couples that don't have children, and just talk a little bit more about how that God views that when there's no reason. It's not like like if I get married now, I'm not having a child. I'm 55. I would be 56 or 57. Who knows? I mean, that ship has sailed in many ways. But but we're talking about when you're young, and like what is God? What is she saying about that and the dangers of that?
First of all, she said your house is a desolate place. I was like, really? Well, just what? But what happened? But recognizing that, like I said, I brought up the point of, he wants us to learn through parenting. We are learning patience, unselfishness, humility, and love at deeper levels. And when there aren't children in the home, and I would say to the point, which is not saying because physically, some there's a
Right.
medical issue you've
Right.
tried and it still didn't happen. You tried. One, there's a choice. She speaks about, and we talked about it too, even when we're talking about the houses we were picking in the chapter before. But one, you're just so career driven. It's all about the money and my
Mm-hmm.
wealth, and I got to build my wealth, and that's my legacy. And then we'll wait, because sometimes people are waiting too long. Like we women, we really don't know our biological clock time
Right.
until you maybe waited so long, and then you're trying to go, and your doctor's like, "Oh, you got 4 eggs," and you're like, "What?" What? Okay, so then it's a problem. But one, when everything else is the focus, obtaining wealth, obtaining you know, properties or whatever, that's the focus and that's the importance, and that's not what God has called us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so she brings up the points that, one, unfortunately, you won't have that deeper level of love that once you have kids, what comes through that kind of the selflessness that you get from that, also the joy that children bring to you in general, just being in the home and the noise and the laughter and the memories, but the actual physical reminder. She brings up Enoch, who we also,
Mm.
he's walk and talk with the Lord.
Yeah.
And but how she brings up the fact that it was once Enoch had his own child, and he saw how much he loved him, and he recognized, man, how much God loves him, and he wanted to honor God even more with his life and show him respect. And we know the story, we hear Enoch walked and talked with the Lord, and the next we didn't see Enoch no more, because he just was so in relationship with God. He's
Uh-huh.
like, you know what? I need you up here with me now.
Yeah.
And so, but how the importance of our relationship deepens for God too when we see that. But hey, if you don't have them, one, either you're making a choice to be missionaries or do stuff that will build the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Look, adoption being an option too, because he tells us, to look out for the orphans. And
Yep.
so
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't have them, but you definitely should not be sitting there buying things. I remember going to a couple's house. They didn't have children, and they were in ministry, and she treated the house like a museum. And my husband and I were so anxious when we brought our kids there. Don't touch this, sit over here, don't. And I'm like, our kids are not unruly and wild, but it was just like, man,
Yeah.
everything was like a museum, because those things became her babies.
Yeah.
And Ellen is saying, hey, that doesn't draw her closer to Christ, though. That's not
Mm-hmm.
drawing you closer to Christ. And that's not what those of us who've made our calling and election sure, he's called us to be in relationship, but also we are to be teaching others. And so, hey, you have this, bring children into your home, or minister, be able to go out into the world now and teach. And then she also brings up, which I thought was crazy, because not crazy, but I was like, again, shocked. She talked about the animals. Don't be over here. And you know, if she was allowed today to see how people treat their pets,
She would be flat out. I mean, what? I would she that's what's like I told you. I don't know if you are I was putting LOL in the book. Like it I would wow. She
she
just
said, "Don't be."
came with the holler.
She
I
came
was
with it. She was like, "For those of you who are loving your pets like a child, there ain't a child. They put them in the animal's place."
yes.
Because she
Yeah.
said, "The love you're putting into that animal cannot go out and build a kingdom.
Right.
So
Yep.
therefore, you're wasting the time and the effort and the talent that God has given you. How about you go out and be building, like you go work in the orphanages, you maybe adopt or foster some children, or you just go and do ministry either locally or in
Mhm.
another country.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just
Go
gonna
somewhere
read.
else."
I'm gonna just read that quote right here. I, LOL. She said, "In place of giving so much attention to pets, lavishing affection upon dumb animals, let them exercise their talent upon human beings who have a heaven to win and a hell to shun."
Come on.
And the reality is, and what she's not saying is, be cruel to animals or whatever,
Yeah.
but people be tripping. And it's like animals are their children and they treat them better than they treat human beings.
Yes.
Even people, we're not even the people who are not trying to adopt, but they treat them better than they treat actual humans in the
Mm-hmm.
street. Kindness and consideration just at the basic level. And she's
Mm-hmm.
saying, no, there as Christians, there are people who are needing heaven and hell. Let's lavish attention on them first and most
Yes.
importantly. I was like, girl, if you don't get on out of here. Okay,
Yes.
so I want to ask a question, and you on the chat, you can answer this question too. You can answer all the questions actually, but here's my question. And this is from chapter 23, preparation for parenthood.
Mm.
What does true preparation for parenthood look like beyond physical and financial readiness? And how can couples cultivate spiritual readiness before children arrive? What are your thoughts about that? And then I'll add a couple thoughts.
Um, One, basically, you you said readiness. That's part of mine. It's basically true readiness. Includes a shared spiritual mission. Like the couple shared the same value in God, but they also study God's word. They pray together. Their values are aligning. Their discipline strategies. These are things they've talked about and discussed, but they're in
Mm-hmm.
tune. Their family vision and their divine guidance. Trina, a lot of us didn't weren't raised with people who had no preparation, but they're united in purpose and in prayer. Like this is part of the readiness outside of all of the tangible things, the degrees, the houses,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And recognizing the fact too that it's still going to be a learning curve. That yeah, you even have all these plans, but you as a couple too agreeing that hey, as we have these children and we begin to learn, more about us and them. Just even once you have the second one, hey, the second one may not be able to have the same discipline style as the first, and we
Mm-hmm.
got to agree that we're
Mm-hmm.
going to come back to the drawing board, and we're going to re-strategize, and we're going to plan, and we're going to continually pray and study and seek God in our rearing, so that we are aligned um, prior to having them, but also once we do have them.
No, I love that. I love that. And I will add to that this idea of which we're talking about an inheritance, but we're talking about that not just in a positive way, but in a negative way. Like, what
Mhm.
have you not healed from that you are passing on to your children?
Wow. Yes.
And so
Woo.
we have to be, and no, we're not suggesting that you're going to be perfect before you have a child.
Right.
But what she is saying, what the Bible is saying, and what we are saying is that our goal, if our goal is heaven, that means our lifestyle should be heavenward. And so, as we are now, let's just be clear for those of you who might be affiliated with the Seventh day Adventist Church, as we are, these books been around for a long time, and so we should have been reading them. So let's start right there. Like, we start right there. The Bible
Mhm.
tells us a lot of things, but this gives us it breaks it down in a very specific practice. We can be implementing
Yeah.
these things. And even if we haven't done that, we can always go back and do it, just like we're doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But um, dealing with our stuff, the best gift you can give your child is dealing with your stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Deal
More
with
than
the stuff,
money.
man. Whether they already out or they just about to be out or you haven't planned them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with your stuff. That's the best gift you can give yourself, your husband, and your children. But if you're already married, give him the gift of dealing with your stuff. Give yourself the gift of being free from your stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Jesus has said that
Whew.
whom the Son sets free is
Come
free
on.
indeed.
Come
Be
on.
free. And so we know that epigenetics teaches us that for a woman, her grandchildren are already in her body.
Already. Come on, God.
And so, and our mindset affects our cells,
Mm-hmm.
and like our physical body is impacted by our mental way of thinking, our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, our mental health, or whatever. So if we're not dealing with our depression, if we're not dealing with our trauma, if we're not dealing, it distorts our body and impacts our daughter
Yes.
and our granddaughter.
Come on. Come
And then that
on.
continues because when our daughter's born,
Woo.
her grandchildren already. So, like, we keep it going.
Ooh.
Besides
Ooh.
the fact that that's just an amazing thing that God did,
Yeah.
if we just look at it in that isolation, but if we look at it as what good could be passed on, like, ooh, what could I do with my health? What could I do with my mindset? What could I do with
Yes.
my, like, stress? What can
Yes.
I eliminate my chronic stress? Just deal with the acute. Can I do that so that I'm giving a gift to my daughter, her
Yes.
children? Like, come on. So that to me is something you could do to prepare for parenthood. If you're not already a parent, do that, and
Mm-hmm.
God will surely bless you, as well as just read and study and just kind of learn what does it mean to raise. I saw a YouTube title today. It says, "Stop, don't raise children, raise adults." And I
Right.
agree. Like I say, all this, you're not raising a child.
Yeah.
You're raising an adult, and what you're doing now is going to shape who they are as an adult, because they spend, if they have long life, they spend more time as an adult than they do as a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're raising them for who they are becoming, not who they
Yes.
are today.
Yes. And starting even in the womb.
Yes.
Like my husband's cousin is having a baby shower this weekend. Trina say you preach about me. Trina, it encompasses so many millions of people. Okay, this hits because the reality is let me circle back to one thing you said, Lorraine, first about just the fact of the inner work that has to happen in us. The fact that we do have our stuff. There's generational trauma and patterns that are
Mhm.
there, things that we need to get healed from. So even again, one of the purpose of this show, while you're in your singleness, part of your thing, we tell you date yourself and know what you like and don't like about him. No, honey, find that you get healed. Like time working on you, Holy Spirit and therapist, help me heal from the daddy wounds I have and the issues of abandonment I have and why I don't trust and my insecure attachment styles and my forgiveness
Mm.
style and the way I
Come on,
show
girl.
up in life and relationships in general. Before you even meet the boo, let God work on you. And I can't remember her name. It's a therapist in a book that she has, but she says most you should spend, and I encourage you this even right now, my oldest, you should spend your early 20s trying to get healed from your childhood. Because even in the best conditions and circumstances, being raised in the church, sort of say, and all of those things, there's still a lot of, depending on how your family, if there was a lot of children, and your mom and dad had to work a lot. So a lot of times you didn't get all the extra soft, you didn't get the soft mama that you needed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still some issues that can even happen in that quote unquote good home, church home. But she said, spend those early years, spend those years when you're first out the home, when you're in college, working on you getting healed so that when you're later connected to somebody, when you're later
Well, we
talking,
glad you here, Onita. I mean, Trina, we glad you here. If we just hitting on stuff that you need to hear, we praise the Lord for that.
amen, amen. And so, but getting healed first, because unfortunately, if you're not healed, even the spouse you have, you're gonna bleed on that person first, and then once you bring children into the home, you're now bleeding on them,
Don't need a
and neither of
transfusion.
them deserve it. Yeah, they don't deserve it, but
Yeah.
you also too, if he's not healed, you don't deserve all of his brokenness, because only God can complete us. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can't complete our spouses,
Right.
and it's hard enough, just hard enough liking yourself on a day-to-day basis. Now you're gonna bring somebody else.
Exactly. And we
It's
don't deserve it either. We don't deserve our
right,
brokenness because we can't
right,
be joyful. We can't have joy. We can't reach our potential if we're bogged down with our stuff. We
yeah,
gotta drop those bags and say, okay, you
right,
know what? I'm gonna just take this carry-on the plane. I'm not gonna take 15 bags. And they got
right.
paid. There's a price to pay.
Yes.
There's a price. Ooh,
Come on,
Jesus,
come
come
on,
on now.
come on.
There's a price to pay
Yes.
for every extra bag that you take on that plane and every extra bag you take in your life. There is a price
Yes.
to pay. And sometimes we can't count the cost of
Boom.
the that we have paid for not letting go.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow. Come on.
We have no idea.
Mm,
We have no idea
mercy.
of the collateral damage that we bring on ourselves, our spouses, and our children when we continue to walk around carrying the baggages and not getting healed. And when we refuse to. Sometimes God, not sometimes he all first of all, not sometimes, all the times he sent the wrath, he sent the donut, he sent the ship, all the things to get us saved, and we want to continue holding on to it or not getting healed, and we can't even quantify the collateral damage
Yeah. We
that we are
cannot.
leaving behind every time that we're self-sabotaging, we're not being patient and loving and understanding to our spouses, our children. We get an attitude, so I'm leaving this church. And I'm not saying there's some genuine church hurt that may have happened, but even in that, we're called to go to that person and say, hey, I
Mm-hmm.
felt you wronged me. And then
Mm-hmm.
the Bible tells us again, if you still didn't get what you needed to, bring an elder. Oh, guess what? It didn't happen again. Now you bring another one, because God wants us to be reconciled to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so recognizing that just because you left that church don't mean you're leaving the world. You're still in the world, you're gonna have trials. Somebody's still
Right.
gonna hurt you.
And
But when we
no, you right. You right. Sorry. Go
no
ahead.
problem, not to say, but when we continue to, like you said, carry all this additional baggage that God never intended, He told us, hey, take up my yoke and my burden, for it's easy,
Mm-hmm. That's
right?
right. That's right. That's
So when
right.
we want to continue carrying it our way, because some of it, again, going back to the state of our mothers and our families, the way we saw them do things, we either think we got to be shero and be ultra independent, and I got to do it and I got to carry it, and or we just feel like, hey, nobody else did it for me. I was raised in a home where I had to always do it for myself, so I got to make it happen. That's not what serving Jesus is
Mm-hmm.
about. He
Mm-hmm.
he he don't need
Yeah.
us to be God. He need us to be human, but get the healing we need, and to let that stuff go and to lay down those bags so that we can be healed and we can show up the way He intended for us to do. Because being a parent, like, this is not just a, parenthood is not just about us having children. It's
Mm-hmm.
not more. It's more about us being than having. Let me put it that way.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
the moral maturity that we need, and emotional maturity that we need to be parents that have patience, that have humility and self control, it must be developed. It needs to be developed prior to us having the children, really. But even if we've had them and we don't have it, with God, all things are possible. We
Yeah.
still can. We
Yeah.
still can, but not if we're holding on to
Not
all
if
those
you're
other
holding
50,
on.
11
If you're
bags.
holding on. All right. I'm gonna transition now.
Okay.
We can talk about This chapter was like hilarious. Okay, the size of the family, size of the family, and at the end of the day, the essence of this chapter is don't be having too many kids you can't pay for, and don't be having so many kids that your wife be worn out and just unhappy because all she got is children all the time.
Yes.
I was like, if this chick don't look at this, listen to this. This is another LOL. She said parents should not increase their families any faster than they know that their children can be well cared for and educated. A child in the mother's arms from year to year is great injustice to her.
Come
It
on.
lessens, and this is my favorite part. It lessens and often destroys social enjoyment and increases domestic wretchedness. She like that you see your wife over there tore up, wore down, and
Yeah.
just pissed off because she can't have no fun.
Hey, and you wonder why the sister always mad at church. She always mad. She tired. She tired. And mind you, even when my mom was born, they were using the cloth diapers. They want these Huggies and Pampers and Honest Pampers. They had this convenience of just
Mhm,
trashing it. They had to keep
mhm,
cleaning all those stuff. They had to
mhm.
keep cleaning all the stuff. I remember my grandmother saying, like, she was quick with because her kids were back to back like that. She was quick with potty training because she was like,
Ain't
she
nobody
had to
got
get
time for
ready.
this.
This. She had to get ready for the next ones and mentioning again back during Ellen's time and even my grandmother, like she had to cook on a wood stove. So
Yeah.
they chop the wood,
Mm,
put the wood in there, and having a baby tied on your back, doing all of that, living because most of them live in
yeah.
agrarian culture.
Yeah.
Everything was manual. There was no
Right.
going to the store and just picking up all your things.
Right.
They literally were having to bring in the bacon, like bring in the cow, the chicken, whatever they were doing, cut, picking their vegetables, doing all of those things, and still trying to rear the children.
Yeah.
And
It's
she's like, no, you're being selfish. That sister is tired.
yes. It is problematic, and one thing I want to highlight is just that we're going to talk about in a second, but just how important motherhood is. Mothers
Yes,
are, and it's just a disservice to your wife when you just be trying to knock out children just so you can feel like a man or whatever it is that you might be feeling, but you're not helping. Like if you have 5 or 10 children and you all both participating in that, because even if your wife is a stay-at-home mother and you got the bills, her
mm-hmm.
job is harder than yours. Like
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like, just
it
let you
is.
put that out there right there.
Yes.
And actually, I don't know if it's in Adventist Home. I didn't read it in here, but it might be in Child Guidance where she says, if we could look behind the scenes and see how God values the work of the mother at
Yes.
home versus you going out,
Yes.
they don't even come close to each other.
No.
And so, just talking about the value of mothers, what they bring, and how important it is that men, whether you're married to her or not, we already went through why you need to be, but
Mm-hmm.
but if you're not, which is why I wish there were some men listening to this right now, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It even like I don't believe in just marrying someone just because you get pregnant. Okay, so but I do believe that you need to be showing up every day.
Oh
Like
yeah.
we may not live together, but guess what? This is your child too. So I'm gonna need to see you every day after work. I'm gonna need to see that paycheck come to the house. I need like you need to treat this child as if we were married and how you would be. Now sometimes they do because a lot of parents in the house, aren't doing that either.
Right.
But this is an important role, and you cannot treat your wife as some like animal that's just kicking out babies for your posterity,
Right.
and sister worn out and tired and can't have no fun, and it's like every time she think one gonna be grown up and go to school, then she got 4 more right behind her. So I'm
Yeah.
like so it's just like we don't talk about this kind of stuff, Onita. We
No.
do not talk about this stuff in church,
No.
and how important it is that men be considering all of those things, especially when you think about how intense this role is,
It's
parenting,
something.
but
Yes,
mothering, how
mother.
intense it is based on God's standard. It's
Yes,
hard even if you just in the world just wilding. It's hard to be a mother.
yeah,
If you ain't thinking nothing about citizens of heaven and you're not thinking about nothing, if you're not thinking about none of that, being a mother is hard. Being a parent is hard, but
yeah,
just because mothers just are more involved in their children's lives than fathers are.
yeah,
Even the best fathers who are not stay-at-home fathers, they are not as involved because they're out working.
yeah, yeah,
So, but even if you just, just wilding, but when you're trying to be a mother like this says you need to be, it's
yes.
almost like if you have more than one kid, you just like done. Because I'm just like, this is a lot of work.
How? Yeah, but my note here is just says she says it's the most important work entrusted to women because you're partnering with God in shaping eternal destinies. And to your point, the community, the church, we must speak about it. Motherhood with reverence and esteem. And so when we look at our nowadays narrative, the narrative is we often equate your worth to your career success.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be that for men, but it's for women too. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I, I hate, like, when I go to some of these real estate networking events now, people want to ask them, hey, what do you do? Or maybe not be real estate, but just a business. What do you do? I literally have now, and it's probably because of a podcast I listen to. I don't ask those questions anymore. I say stuff like, what's something lately you've done to brought you joy?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes. Good.
people want to only, they want to make it seem like you are successful based on your
Mm-hmm.
career. But she brings up the point that while work is valuable, motherhood is not a setback, but a divine assignment.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
We should affirm women who prioritize home life and raise their children in faith. And I would tell you, I've said on the show multiple times how
Yeah.
people took digs at me all the time when we made a
Mm-hmm.
decision for me to stay home and take care of my children. It
Yeah.
was not. This was not our culture. This was not our family genealogy. This was all God saying, these are children you prayed for, and there was things that Victor and I prayed for before we got married, but even during, and looking at it now, I didn't know it now. I didn't know um this was happening. I didn't know what God was doing and setting us up for
Mm-hmm.
when we start talking about breaking generational curses. I didn't even know the ignorance of it at the time. It's a beautiful thing, but us making a decision, what, it's going to be more financial. We were looking at it, what, by the time you go out and pay daycare and all of that, we decide, okay, you stay home, take
Mm-hmm.
care of the children. But also I can look now at the fruits,
Mm-hmm.
staying home and them waking up to, worship songs and us having worship and eating and not being a mad dash in the morning. The
Mm-hmm.
importance of sitting at the table. There's studies shown just families sitting at the table for breakfast and that communication time, what it
Mm-hmm.
does for a family nucleus as the kids get older and get out the home. Just the same as at dinner time, being able to sit at the dinner table and have communication and checking in with one another, what that does to the family. The
Mm-hmm.
just, me being able to, hey, now that I'm working with the children choir, my kids being in the choir, my
Mm-hmm.
kids coming out to Sabbath school because mama's there doing it. Now dad's able to serve, but we're not tired. I've been home. So our clothes were prepared and laid out Thursday night. And I was able to make a nice meal so we could have people over all the time on Sabbaths, to where later people said, I didn't know we were just doing us, but people were like, you made us feel so welcome. We didn't,
Mm-hmm.
nobody had ever invited us over. Or, there was college students that, hey, it's Thanksgiving. I know you may be able to come to our house for Thanksgiving, and how when their families came to town months later, years later, you don't know what that meant to my
Oh,
child.
that's so
And it was,
awesome.
for us, we were just living. But the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I can look now and see tangibly the decision made for my role to be at home, rearing our children, giving them the love, letting them see that too. There was joy there for me taking care of them. I took pride in that. My husband took pride in providing so that we could stay home. But
Mm-hmm.
even too, then once he got home, Hey, you go ahead, take a break. I got them.
Mm-hmm.
Worked all day. He's had his commute home to kind of de-stress. All right, everybody's fed. Okay, babe, I got them. You go ahead, take your hour or two, whatever you need. I got them. And so, and then sharing the bedtime routine roles and the bath time
Mm-hmm.
routine so that mom is not so overwhelmed with all the things. So now she's hating it and she's
Yeah,
begrudgingly wanting out
yeah,
of the house.
yeah.
And he would tell people all the time, and I would tell people, even once I think Sydney got about 3 years old, I started back doing real estate, which was still on my time and a lot more flexibility. But I would tell people when they'd be like, "Girl, yeah, I know you've been out all day. I know you're tired." I'd be like, "No, me working outside the home at the way I was a break. As far as it was, it was not a big
Yeah.
deal because home was way more important. And my husband used to always tell people, Anita's running the Fortune 500 company at
Mm-hmm.
our house right now.
Mm-hmm.
With everybody's appointments and sicknesses and people's favorites, and they do like and don't, all the things I had to manage, but I took pride and joy in it because one, I wasn't raised in that, and
Mm-hmm.
two, I'm like here at the time, and I think I do know. I think probably when I was pregnant with Avery is when I started reading child guidance. Us now knowing better that my mental health had such a big
Mm-hmm.
impact on my pregnancies as well as how I was going to be as a mother to those kids after the fact. Then we were like, okay, no, we really made a good decision because
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to do this. It's an honor to do it, but it's very important that my state of mind and that I'm not sitting here feeling like he's resentful that I'm home, that I'm not having a spouse who said, all you do is be home with them
Right.
and
Come on, come on. You
all
tell.
these things.
Yeah,
It was very
I was
important.
about to go there.
Yeah, it was very important that I also was still feeling love and appreciated by my spouse so that I could still be the best mom and best version to them that I could be, that I got affirmations from him. And then there was a couple other mothers, and I found groups of women who were, and a lot of them weren't in my church, but that were mommy me play dates and different
Mm-hmm.
things that believed in that lifestyle and encouraged it and supported each other. And I didn't get it a lot of times from, people that were working moms. I mean, I would get complaint, I'm working doubles. I didn't cook today because I had to work double yesterday. And they were kind of,
Yeah.
look
Look
down at
down.
me because
Yeah.
I had a meal plan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not my fault, but
Right.
what she
Right.
said in this chapter was those very things. This is why make the plan, but let's affirm the women who are doing it. But let's also speak about it more that we're partnering as mothers, we're literally partnering with God to shape
Mm-hmm.
our children for eternity. Or excuse me,
Absolutely.
raise adults. But as their children, even from the womb,
Yeah.
we begin to
Yeah.
read. We're shaping. We begin to read, and I bought Victor's cousin some books who's having a baby now. I bought her books. I said Victor would read to my tummy every night. It starts even there, and so we started reading and playing music even then, so that became the norm,
Mm-hmm.
even as they were babies, and learning the little nursery songs that we, Bible nursery songs that we sang, because those things, they help encourage you later in life. You don't even know where, Jesus wants me for a sunbeam. You may pop out right when you need it because we sang it every day.
I
So what
love that. I love that.
happened?
Now, yeah, I can't comment on everything you said because there was so much goodness in there, and I wanted you to talk about that too when I was writing that question because I had a question that was related to that, and it was just in what ways has culture distorted or devalued the sacred role of motherhood, and how can we as a community restore honor to this God-given responsibility? And you answered that. I think that it has to start with you know um, the husband. What really has to start with her to say to appreciate and value herself. And I guess it always starts with us, because even if our husband affirms us, if we feel some kind of way about it, then um, or if we've allowed culture to make us feel uncomfortable about like being able to be at home and take care of our
Yeah,
children, or that's not as valuable, or you should be doing all this and you had a great job and why don't all of that kind of stuff, then it wears away at our own sense
yeah,
of self-worth and value. And then no matter what anybody says, we still struggle. But if we can recognize uh, God's gift in that ability, because everybody can't do that. Like it's just
yeah,
like I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, everybody would do that, but we don't live in an ideal world, so everybody can't do that.
Yeah.
Even just like we were talking about the last time, talking about where to live and finding a home in the country and all of those. Everybody can't do that. So
Yeah.
do the best that you can do in the situation that you're in, and ask God to lead you to the next situation. But when you are able to do that, to be comfortable in that, find joy, not like recognize the joy in it.
Yeah.
It's still gonna be hard. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you change it, like, because I mean, I remember when I was, you living with Ebony, and the girls were, small or whatever. I mean, how come y'all poop so much? Like, I just don't understand. Y'all like little, and just like, I don't get that, and it stinks,
It's,
and it's like, what is that?
as soon as you put
But
it
I
in, you
was
bring it
like,
home.
but I was helping, and I'm just like, man, this is a lot
Hmm.
of poop, and so and just all the things,
Yes, it's a
but
lot.
and but you know recognize the privilege and the joy in that, but also then it's like your husband needs to be affirming of that. And the thing is that a lot of people may reluctantly or even agree to, a lot of husbands, but then they do make it seem like you're not doing anything because you're at home.
Yes,
I'm just
yes.
like, bruh, can
Yeah.
you spend one day
Yeah, you can only do
doing
20, you can
all
only do
the
two
things,
hours.
all the things?
Right.
Because it's not just the it's not just the tangible things that you're doing, but like you're saying, running a Fortune 500 company, the person who runs the Fortune 500 company, he's not making the product.
Right.
But he's having to manage all of the products. He's having to manage all of the people. He's trying
Hmm.
to make sure all of the details that other people don't even know about have to
Yes.
be done. And so it's like that part of trying to um, get our husbands in our churches to start, and our church needs to start teaching this. I mean, the
Yeah.
church really needs to be going through this book.
Yes.
Like once a year, every church needs to go through this book. I mean, just like we need to start teaching real life Christianity,
Yeah.
and not this stuff that we talking about or whatever. But
Hmm.
it's like, for to have teach husbands the importance of the role that their wives play, and to have them honor them, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
It is a game changer when your husband or your man honors you. It don't matter what nobody else says.
Right.
Once know that God has called you to this, and then your husband affirms and he supports. And then it's so funny because when you all were here, Victor and I were talking about that too, about when you were at home, and we had a whole like we had like 3 podcast episodes, right, sitting at the table. um but he was saying how he would kind of take his time, maybe in the car, on the way from work, and then like sit in the garage and just kind of letting it go and say, now
Yeah.
I'm switching gears, and come in and be helpful, and take the kids and give you a break and all that kind of stuff. And even you on Instagram and you watching all these people talk about how husbands need a break from, and I'm not saying they don't need to decompress from work,
Right.
because work is very stressful. I'm like, that's what you got to do in the car, like play you some gospel music, play whatever you need to do. Sit in the parking lot in the driveway for 10 minutes or so, pray, get your mind right, but
Yeah.
realize that whatever work you were doing is different than what she was doing, and now she needs a break from her work. You
Yeah.
got off of your work. So you need to take some time to like help with the kids and do all of that stuff, because she's probably still trying to prepare dinner and all that. And as much as you love your kids, you get tired of them. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you just do. Like, stop bothering me. I don't. You just talk. You to call my name 905 times. Like, I need you to stop.
Yeah. And you need a break. You need a break. I think they Trina put too. She said her older kids were there now, so she could go on a date. She said, I'm going out now. My adult children watching the toddler children. And you got to do that. Like we had to. So let me be clear. Some of that had to communicate. Like I was so busy because of my unsecure childhood growing up. I was doing everything. So he would sometimes come home and I still would do it all. But then there were later moments he'd be like, "Hey, babe," and I'd be like, "I'm tired. I'm tired."
Mhm.
So they need to communicate, "Hey, I get it, you're tired, but I'm the husband and I need time too." And so the plan was, the compromise was, okay, well, I'm gonna let some of these, when you get home, some of the things that I normally do, getting the dishes in the dishwasher, bath time routine, the story time, you take that on so I can have a reprieve, so I can have
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
de-stress and decompressing time.
because then I can get my mind.
Right, right.
I can get my mind. But
Right.
if I got to go straight from giving a bath to having sex, that probably
That
that
ain't
transition ain't gonna go out
the
so well.
transition. Not is not gonna happen. The same with the cleaning. I'm constantly cleaning. Eventually, it started off as a, oh, for your birthday, I'm gonna have cleaning people come in, and then it became, okay, a once a month thing. We budgeted so we can do that. Okay, cut off some of the streaming stuff, cut off some of this. Okay, we're
Mhm.
gonna budget so that they'll come in once a month, and then at one point it got up to twice a month to help me know that they're doing a lot more deeper. So now I just need to maintain it
Right.
in the week, but so that I'm not overwhelmed, I'm not super tired, and I'm able to be present in all my relationships, not just even with him, the kids, but I have friends, I have ministry, so I can be a better me. I can be good to me too, that I can
Mhm.
enjoy and not feel so overwhelmed. And so, I have friends that still never wanted to go out for dates because they didn't trust nobody or didn't want nobody to babysit. And I'm like, understand, a good thing, again, as we talk about your children being a legacy, not liability, is letting them see a happy, healthy marriage and mom and dad liking each other, and that y'all actually have to set boundaries and say, mom and dad are going on date night. And I would tell you the first couple of times, oh, mommy, where you going? And then mom and dad need date night, and I had to literally say to them, mommy and daddy have to have mommy and daddy time. We were together before y'all came here. We got to, and guess what? As y'all age out and y'all gone from the home, we still need to be able to like each other so that we're not
Yes.
doing like a lot of people do, divorce as soon as they become empty nesters because they've grown apart and don't know each other. So I
Mhm.
like him, he likes me. I want to continue that. And so then it became it became a, oh, bye. Like they knew, they'd be like, bye, bye, get
Yeah.
out of here, because they know we needed that time together. And so
Yeah.
you got to do
And
that.
you're teaching them how to behave in their marriage too.
Yes. And
So, Onita, we got a question here from the
okay.
super husband dad.
Hey,
Super,
dad.
you
Okay.
know who that is.
Uh-huh.
What about the dad who stays at home for whatever reason? What's your thoughts on how that should go? And I have some thoughts because I actually was watching a video on YouTube, Instagram today of a dad who stays at home, and somebody had made a comment about him basically being lazy and he need to go get a job. And my thought is, if the if that makes sense for your family and you both agree to that, then I'm all for it. I actually think it would be cool if every father stayed home for a year and took care of their children, just to experience what that's like,
Yeah.
to have that kind of relationship with your child. It doesn't mean you don't love your child and don't have a good relationship. It's just a different level of care when you're like there all the time, to
Mm-hmm.
know, who their friends at school are, what's going on, in their life, for them to feel that safety to be able to tell you all the things. And a lot of times mothers get to know a lot of stuff that fathers don't know just because fathers aren't around as much. But I think that's pretty cool. I don't have any reservations about, unless he's just trying to be trifling, and
Yeah,
he
I'm gonna say,
and
because we
he not actually taking care of the children that much at
right,
home, and he not
right.
doing other stuff. He
He got
just
to
at
keep
home.
working.
That's different. But
Yeah.
if it's just a role reversal, I actually don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's ever going to be the norm, because I do feel like men have a different desire and drive to, I'm not going to say provide, because I just learned a different way to perceive that, but
Yeah.
not be the source of provision, but to be the conduit of provision for their
Yeah.
families. And God gives purpose and all that. But I think that if the husband is staying at home, then he should get the same treatment that the wife gets if she stays at home.
Yeah.
He needs to be given a break. He needs to be honored in that position. He needs to be It's still our resources, not it's not your money, and you don't get to control it, just like he don't get to control it. Just, all of the things in my perspective apply, even if the role is reversed.
Hmm.
So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I agree with that too, and the same too what you said about the perspective of providing, because I love what Myron Edmonds is
Yeah.
saying and repeatedly saying about how we've equated men to being the provider when the Bible never even said man is to be the provider. And so, unfortunately, a lot of men in their homes have been minimized to that role solely. And so, but it does a disservice to him to not having to recognize one, it does a disservice to him because there's pressure to when he can't do it, then what? What is his sense of worth and purpose? So
Mhm.
that's a whole nother podcast episode. But yeah, I like what he's saying about that. The other thing is let's be clear, like you said, the Bible says man that don't work, he don't eat. So we ain't saying you stand at home and you ain't doing nothing. No, bruh.
Don't
No,
try
no.
to play us now. Don't try to play
Don't
us. But
yeah,
yeah.
don't try to play us. I will say this, being that my husband was out of the home a lot, transitioning, and I feel like I've seen this a whole lot more since the pandemic because a lot of men did now have to be home, and some of them had decided not to go back. And so it's great if they're in the home, you're and the wife's in the home, maybe both are working from home, and 6 months done by choice. Hierarchy, I bonded so much to my son. Yeah, it's major. That's the point I was gonna make too. In some countries, fathers get paternity leave just as long as the wife, like
Mm-hmm.
just as long as the mother.
That ain't
My
never
husband's
gonna
job,
happen here, but
yeah, yeah. When I
yeah.
had VJ, Victor's job had an automatic 6 week built in. That was the first job he'd ever been in, where they were like, "Oh, paternity leave for 6 weeks," and we were like, "Paternity? What? Not maternity, paternity." And it was great because even just me having my 4C section, it just you need more help. But
Mm-hmm.
knowing that he was there, like he got take the other kids still had to go to school, and there were still meals that needed to be done, and I was downstairs. I didn't go up and down with the laundry, so there was a lot of things he was able to take on and do for me, to
Mm-hmm.
where I literally could just rest, eat, and feed the baby. Rest, eat, feed the baby. Like that was my thing, and I thank God he had that time because a lot of times you don't give it and get it. And so I think it is a blessing, to your point, like you said, if the father can experience that, one, it
Mm-hmm.
gives him a whole lot of viewpoint of what the wife is dealing with, the empathy. But I think it also helps the children, because my kids were so used to coming to me for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like during the pandemic, when they saw their dad cooking the eggs in the morning and making the hash browns and dropping them off to school, like the first couple of times they were like looking in the kitchen like, does he know what he's doing? Like, mom puts a little Himalayan salt, dad, and pepper. She doesn't use that blue box. Like we use that blue block just to gargle warm salt and water. She doesn't use that in the food. But it was
Ah,
it was a new experience. And so, but even still, but they got to see that dad could do those things.
yeah.
It opened up another level of respect for them, that dad can do the drivers. Then they start saying, dad never gets us to school late. Like sometimes I'm pulling up right at the, I'm pulling up right at 8. So technically you're not late.
It's like I
You know,
still got to get to the classroom.
and they're like, but yeah, we get there like we got mad time to spend with dad. So well, on Fridays, dad doesn't cook. He actually just takes us to Burger King, get us an egg and cheese croissant, mom. And I'm like, that's dad's money. That ain't my money. But it was great because now they have stories where it was just me in the morning, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just me. Our whole morning routine is different. I'm playing a podcast, or we're singing and talking, where dad got the gospel station on, and then they're getting to learn who that's the girl Darlene and all these people from the radio. But it's a different experience, but they got to experience that because
Yeah,
dad
that's
was
so
home
good.
and
That's
working,
good.
and to get to see a softer side too of dad, and
Mm-hmm.
get to be a little bit more joking in the morning, and just a different viewpoint. So I think it's definitely good if the father can be home. But to your point too, usually they're a little bit more still like he was happy to be back going into work, because that was just such a custom for him. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be in the building eventually. I
Yeah.
need to be in the building
Right.
to feel more productive. And so, he did both, but I think it's good if the men can be home. I wanted to jump back real quick to something you said though about others. I wrote, because I got the question ahead of time, guys. about the distortion of mothers, but how we value, but how we can support mothers practically and spiritually.
Mhm.
And I kind of already said, one, we need to affirm the mothers, like affirming mothers that the job they are doing to raise children, it is important. But also in our communities, in our churches, create networks of support. So either through mentorship, shared resources, prayerful encouragement, podcasts like this. Um, but even I was yesterday in my lesson, in my study, and I was in Acts, I think 3 and 4. But even how the early churches, they made sure nobody went without. And I can tell you, even as a
Mhm.
kid growing up in the projects, and some people maybe went to church. I didn't go to church with none of these people, but I knew if we had the bread and our neighbors had the bologna, we always eating the bologna sandwich tonight.
Mhm.
Like that's what the single mothers raising these kids
Mhm.
did. We don't have a syrup sandwich. Oh, my mom brought a watermelon home. She had a huge, big one. She gonna get cut half, and then my neighbor she'll give her the other half for her kids to have with the seeds still in it because we would practice spitting them far who can go the
Mhm.
furthest.
The good old
But
days.
but the unity, the unity of the networks, and if you look at our churches back in the day, the church
Yeah.
mothers, nobody's child was going astray and not they weren't praying. They were tarrying all night praying
Mhm.
for these kids.
Mm.
Nobody's kid, if you wanted to go to church school, was not going to be in the church school because mothers were going to come together. They were going to support. I remember us going and it was a church mother who's a Bible worker who like mothered my mom, and that's kind of what kept us in the faith because
Mhm.
she made sure she looked out for us and that other people she were in our network with her friend group that we were going to get into the school, we were going to get the uniforms, we were going to have meals, we were going to get. There was a trip the Pathfinder was going on, and my mom didn't have enough money. These women came together to make sure that and other people in the church, men too who help, but the communities pooled their
Mhm.
resources, they shared their resources to make sure that the children didn't go without and that they were able to experience things in life because they came
Yeah.
together and prayed and just knowing that they're praying for you.
I love it. I
Encouragement
love
that
it.
mothers need.
Okay, Anita. So we thought we are gonna get through this, but we already in the 118. So we're gonna wrap it up and maybe
Yes.
do the next part next week because I don't want to shortchange the next sections of this. And so
Yeah.
we're gonna leave it with that question and then do the next two next week. But I want to just reference something that Anson said
Yeah.
um, under the cover of Super Husband Dad. Um, um, we are in a society that says that men aren't vulnerable and compassionate, and then a lot of men aren't. But I think that which is like what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like I think a lot of men are not displaying their vulnerability and compassion because a lot of people don't accept that from them or don't allow them to be that. And so then the cycle continues because then you pass that on, you pass it on. But what was so interesting about, let me put the comment back up here that he said, uh, it shows that dads can be nurturers too. A lot of times we are
Yes.
labeled as providers and protectors and not able to be known as vulnerable and compassionate. And, what was so interesting is that that's essentially what the the Instagram post, the father was responding to someone who basically was dogging him out for being at home with his daughter. And his daughter was loving life. She seems she was maybe like 5 or 6. And his clapback was actually a rap, which was pretty cool. But he was basically saying, like, how did you have a father that was never around? That's why you can't imagine me being the father who's in the house, kind of thing.
Yes.
And I just love that because I think that as we aspire to not just be citizens of heaven, but to create citizens for heaven,
Yes.
think about Jesus. Jesus wasn't all masculine or all feminine. He was a
Mhm.
perfect combination of all of those qualities. So he could be stern, he could flip a table if he needed to, but he also, John was laying on his chest.
Yes.
Like when you think about that in the context of our distorted mind, we just think that's kind of Like I said, what he was laying up. What the Bible said? What? I mean, were they gay? Like, what's the? I mean, I don't understand that. But obviously, they were not.
Yeah.
But that means they were vulnerable, and he was compassionate toward. John kept saying that to referring to himself as the disciple that Jesus
Jesus
loved.
love.
He's like, I'm
Yes.
not saying he don't love y'all, but I just know he loved me. I know he loves me. And so obviously he was vulnerable and compassionate. When he went to Gethsemane and he was just like, hey, take my boys with me. I need y'all to pray with me. They did not receive his vulnerability by actually praying for him. So that's a different topic. And maybe it's the right topic because sometimes we aren't praying for our men because we're just like, oh, they good, they strong, they whatever. And it's like, no, they're feeling the weight too,
Yes, they are.
of what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But Jesus was vulnerable in that moment, and he was just like, hey, if we can do anything else to save these folks, let's do that. And God's like, no. you know and so if we want to be whole, then we need to be like Jesus was. Not just the men need to be like Jesus, the women need to be too.
Amen.
And so we need a balance of all of those things, and to be able to apply those characteristics when they're needed, necessary, and appropriate. I
Amen.
don't know if you had some final comments before I closed out here.
Oh no, girl. I think you said it well. Could be
All
like
right.
Jesus.
Thank you. So thank you
Be like
all who
Jesus.
for joining us and for your comments. We really appreciate that. We like to hear from you all while we're in the middle of the conversation. We love for you to like, share, and comment, even if you weren't with us live, because we will respond to those. But we love for you to be live with us so we can just kind of see what you're thinking about what we're saying. Um, we appreciate you. We are so excited to be jumping into season 8. We have a lot of great things coming. We know the Pastor Leggett will be back at some point. We actually have Damien, who was our single man who was with us last season. He will be joining us on July 1st.
I know this name was Dalmain.
Dalmain is his name. And so just him, not Damien, just Dalmain will be joining us on that episode. Thank you for that. And then we have some other people that we're going to work on getting to have these conversations as well. So we thank you all for all that you are. Remember that children are a heritage of the Lord,
Amen.
and the fruit of the womb is a blessing. And so we want to be attentive to how God is asking us to raise the children that we have so that they are citizens in the kingdom, because ultimately we are stewarding his children. Don't belong to us. We don't have ownership. We just have management rights. And so
Amen.
let's manage them the way that he would. Thank you all. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you.